If you're considering moving to the Fort Walton Beach area, you probably have a lot of questions. And at the top of that list is, where should I move in Fort Walton? That's exactly what today's video is going to be all about. What is going on? I'm Andrew, and this is
AJ.
And we are real estate professionals right here in the beautiful, sunny Fort Walton Beach area. So if you're looking to figure out everything there is to know about Fort Walton Beach, or really anywhere in our entire area from Pensacola to Panama City Beach and everything in between, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and tickle that little bell so that you'll be notified every single time we do a new video.
We do want to thank our returning viewers, our subscribers, and if you're new to the channel, we want to thank you as well. You're in for some really solid content.
The first thing on our list in regards to moving to a new area, particularly Fort Walton Beach, is the location. Exactly where in town do you need to be? And you're going to need to be able to figure out what's important to you for this. Is it schools? Is it shopping? Is it being close to one of the military bases? Maybe you're getting PCS'd out there. You need to take all of these things into consideration. Now, we're going to go over a few of those here in just a second, but we're not going to be able to go over everything or every neighborhood in Fort Walton Beach. So if you are moving to this area and you want to, talk to us further about the different types of areas that maybe we're not covering in this video, then all of our contact information is on the screen. You can reach out to us, calls, text, emails, social media. You can do a comment down below. Whatever is best for you guys, reach out to us. We really, really enjoy talking to you.
Andrew said, obviously, we can't go through every single neighborhood in the area, but stick around to the end. We're going to go over a couple of our favorites and talk about their proximities to different things. Now, speaking of proximities and such, something that we like to really consider when we're talking about different neighborhoods, especially if you're going to live there, is the safety, right? So how do you find out which neighborhoods are safe if you don't live here? Some of the things that we like to have our clients do is check out the crime maps. The local police department has these websites and they will color code the different areas according to how much crime they see on the regular. And they will annotate whether it's, petty theft or something as crazy as murder, so that you really get an idea for what's actually happening in those areas. Something else that we like to do is, if you're actually coming to the area prior to purchasing, is drive around the different neighborhoods and see how you feel when you're in them. Specifically, drive around at night. If you see, things that you don't want to see or things that you don't want to be around at night in the neighborhood, it's a pretty good indicator that you shouldn't buy or live there. And obviously things are going to be different to everybody, what you think is okay versus what you're not okay with. So it's really important that you see these things for yourself. And if you're working with us, then obviously you can ask us to go and do a video tour of the neighborhood and the house if you're not going to be able to make it here to see the property in person for yourself. And we can absolutely go do a quick driving tour in the evening if that's something that you really want.
Another thing to look out for when it comes to safety is checking out the neighborhood itself. If you're very safe conscious as something that's high on your priority list, then looking at things like, are there sidewalks in the neighborhood? Does it have street lighting? Does it have a neighborhood safety watch? And things like that. Another thing to look at whenever you're thinking about a new city to live in is the transportation, or in a lot of cases now, what your commute time is going to look like. Now, you can also look at transportation if that is something that you're doing, like public transportation or something. So that is one thing to look at. But in our area, it's not going to be a really big prevalent thing like it is in a lot of big cities. Although Fort Walton Beach does have not really a train, like a bus that kind of drives around. I'm not entirely sure of all the details on that, so I would definitely Google that if that's important to you. But the thing I do want to talk about is your proximity to stuff. So Fort Walton Beach consists of three different kind of sub-cities. You've got Fort Walton Beach, Maine, you've got Mary Esther, and then you've got Shalimar. And those are all kind of encompassed inside of Fort Walton Beach. If you're going to be working out of Eglin Air Force Base, which is closer to the Shalimar side, but you're living over on the other side of Mary Esther, that's going to be a really big commute time, even though they're only about 4 or 5 miles apart from, as a bird flies, as we like to say, or as a crow flies. You're going to have to drive all the way around, then all the way up. Hopefully we'll throw a little map up on this video if you remember to kind of show you that little route there. But those are going to be things that are going to be important to you. And the same thing is vice versa. If you're living all the way up north in Poquito Bayou, which is a neighborhood we'll talk about here in a few minutes, and that's up at Shalimar near Eglin Air Force Base, but you're commuting to Hurlburt, then you are going to have a longer commute where you're going to hit a little bit of traffic and then all of the morning commute times as well. So just put these things into consideration. I know whenever I moved here, that was one of the most important things for me out of everything we're going to talk about on this list. I didn't like driving. I wasn't a big fan. So at the time, I was stationed at Eglin Air Force Base and I was moving to Hurlburt, and they're so close to each other. So I chose a house right smack dab in the center. My real estate professional must have thought I was a nut job. I'm not sure. But I really did. I was like, oh, this is perfect. I'm like 5 minutes to Eglin, 5 minutes to Hurlburt. It's more like 7. But it was right smack dab in the middle, and it was super important to me. So I understand how that could be important to somebody else. Just keep that stuff in mind. Google is a great tool for this. At any point, you can type in the address that you're looking in and how close it is to the nearest base access or wherever you're trying to get to.
If you're like me and you have children, and well, one child or more, you're kind of a child. I kind of have to take care of you. So, yeah. I'm not worried about schooling with him, but I do have a child that school is a priority. So if you're in that same boat, that's definitely something that you're going to want to look into. You know, research which school zone that your child is going to be in or which school you want your child to be in, and then look into that school zone and make sure you're kind of sticking to that area if that's where you want your child to go to school. And there are different ways to check out what the ratings of the schools are. We have both public and private schools here that you can look into. If driving isn't a concern, you know, kind of decide, are you going to drive your child? Do you want to be on the bus route? How close do you want to be to the school? Things of that nature. Definitely keep that in mind.
And if you've got a child that is going to go into one of the private schools here, there's one in particular that I know of that has a pretty good hefty waiting list. I believe they require you to have an address here in the area before you can sign up to get on that waiting list. But that's one of the first things that you'll want to do as soon as you move into town is get them on that waiting list so they can get into that school.
The next thing that you really want to consider when you're deciding on a neighborhood is to look at the history of the neighborhood and see how the values have appreciated over time. What's their pattern versus other neighborhoods if you've got a couple to choose from based, you know, on the location that you've decided on. So something that we can do as professionals is look at various properties in the subdivisions and see what those are looking like. Obviously, whenever you are looking to purchase, whether this is going to be your primary residence or something that's going to make you money, maybe you're going to rent it out until you move to the area, maybe you're going to move to the area temporarily and then rent it out. These are all kind of things that you need to consider and what the goal is. If you'd like to rent it out at some time, then obviously we're going to need to run some projections for you so you have those actual numbers in place so you know what to expect as far as income on the property. Make sure that it's going to make sense for the mortgage that you're going to have on it if you're paying with financing as opposed to cash. A couple of things that we recommend is not buying the most expensive house in the neighborhood. You don't want to, be at the highest point, and then all the comparable properties that sell are basically never going to be at the level that your house is, and therefore your house's value will be a little bit less than you would anticipate it to be.
And for those of you thinking, hey, I'm going to move there and rent instead of purchase, there's nothing wrong with that. We are realtors first, so of course we would love it if you would purchase, but it's not the end of the world if you decide to rent. But just keep in mind that rentals here in our area, particularly in Fort Walton Beach, they are scarce, and they are, in comparison to what a mortgage would be, they are considerably higher, like in the tune of 70-60% higher than what your mortgage would be in most cases. So just prep for that if renting is the way to go, because for a lot of people it will be, hey, I want to move to the area, I want to figure it out first before I purchase. Got it. We understand. Just know going into it that that's going to be a thing. And then you're also, if you're coming here with dogs or cats, whatever, any sort of animals, that's going to then put another strain on it. And it is going to be even more expensive there. A great example of this is a house that we just threw up for rent literally yesterday. We helped them purchase it at, I think it was around $250,000. The exact number is escaping me right now, and the mortgage would be roughly $1,200 to $1,400, whereas they're able to rent it out for $2,200, and our phones are ringing off the hook for it. And that's because that is the separation between the mortgage and the rental prices. So again, nothing wrong if you want to rent, but you need to have that in your head that you are going to pay a premium for it. And if you want it to be pet friendly, then you're going to pay even above that, and the non-refundable pet deposits and things like that. So just keep all of these in mind whenever you're calculating if this is the best move for you and if it's cost effective for you to move down here.
I just feel like I have to say this. So obviously anyone who is renting a property out is doing it to make money. So it should come as no surprise that, like Andrew said, when a mortgage is X amount, the rent is going to be considerably higher. So definitely consider, do you have the ability to purchase if you're looking at renting for a certain amount? I understand that some people don't have the income history to actually qualify to purchase, but if you're meeting the rental requirements, which are typically first month, last month deposit, and you have to make 3 times the amount of the rent, you're probably pretty solid on qualifying to actually purchase. So keep that in mind. It's not for everybody, but run the numbers, see what makes sense for you.
Regardless of which route you decide to go, please keep in mind that we can help with it either way. Now, we can't help fully in the rental aspect, but we can at least set you guys up on a search, so go ahead and reach out to us. All of our information, of course, we'll throw on the screen here for you. So if you are thinking about doing that, just shoot us a quick email of like, hey, we're looking for a rental in the area, and then we'll at least set you up on that search, and then from there, you'll have to contact individual property managers to help, but it'll at least get you started.
Yeah, the alternative to having an agent help you to find a rental is looking on your own and not having access to all the listings that we have. So basically, instead of having to go search one by one via, property managers and such and their sites, you can get everything delivered to your inbox immediately as soon as it hits the market. And then we will give you the contact information for the agent directly so that you can reach out to them. We don't receive any funds or anything for this, but we absolutely want to be the ones to help you find a place.
And for those of you that are apartment people, I do know that's a good majority of people. I've got a good friend in Atlanta. He just refuses to live anywhere but an apartment. We do have those options out here. We've got several big names or bigger names. They're not necessarily national or what have you, that you can rent apartments through there. They keep the grounds just absolutely gorgeous, but you are going to pay a very hefty premium. I was just talking to a friend yesterday that, a friend of his is paying $2,200 per month for a 1-bedroom right here in town in the new apartments by the mall. Whereas, you can get a 3-bedroom, 2-bed house on a corner lot for the same amount of dollar. But some people like the maintenance-free, the hassle-free, the amenities, all of that stuff. We get it. If you're going to be searching for those apartments, check them out. You're going to have to search those out separately. We're not going to have access, and most property managers are not going to have access to that as well.
Those are all really good points to kind of consider whether you want condo living or if you want a house. What's the lifestyle that you want to have when you're here? Are you the type that really needs some space and some privacy? You want your own, fenced in yard and what have you? Or are you the type that really isn't home a lot? Maybe you travel a whole lot and you just need a small space to keep your stuff, basically, so you have a dedicated spot to sleep every night when you're around and there's no issue when you're not around traveling. And kind of figure out what's going to best match your lifestyle. And then when you are there, what kind of amenities do you need? Do you need a couple of acres, maybe like 10 acres because you want to have a horse or something? Or do you want no yard because you're like me and you're like, I do not have time to mow a yard and get bitten by mosquitoes?
And we can even take lifestyle a step further in kind of the location of where you're going to be at. I know we talked to location a little bit earlier. This kind of mixes in with lifestyle too. Do you want to be near downtown Fort Walton? Do you want to be able to drive your golf cart to the downtown area? Then there's a certain area of town, Elliott's Point, that you're going to want to be in. Do you want a Gulf front condo? You want to wake up every morning and have your tea on your balcony overlooking the beautiful yes, Gulf of Mexico? You have those options. We've got an entire island of condos that everything that is Gulf front, facing the Gulf of Mexico, the beach as people call it, we have an entire area that's all it is. And most of them are Gulf front facing or at least partial views. And you can rent these out. There are owners that rent these out long term. And of course, short term is a very big option too. If you don't want that portion, but you still want to be on the water, you want access to the water, then we've got tons of condos and even houses that are right there on the sound that you can have your own dock on, or the complex might have a dock. So point is, whatever the lifestyle is that you're looking for, whenever you call us and reach out to us to help you with that, just let us know and we'll make sure that you're in that kind of lifestyle.
Lifestyle kind of feeds into communities, I would say. And this goes back to How often are you going to be home? How much time are you going to spend there? Do you have kids that you want to make sure there are other children there in the neighborhood for them to play with? What age ranges, you know? So we need to know, what type of atmosphere do you want in your community? Do you want to be just left alone, like, hey, stay off my yard? Or do you want, something where, everybody knows your name and there are parties in the cul-de-sac, These all play a really big factor in how happy you are when you're living there, both in the short term and in the long term, because your home is supposed to be your place of peace. Now, if it's not going to be your home, then we need to consider, who do you want to advertise this property to? Are we looking at, for people who are going to want to just be there short term, they want, views of the beach? Or is this going to be a multiple bedroom place for families that are going to be there long term? We need to discuss who your opportune client is, essentially.
All right, so those are the main things that we need to be considering whenever moving to an area in general, and here in Fort Walton Beach is no different. So now we kind of want to go into a few of our favorite neighborhoods, and there's a bunch that we're not going to be able to talk about here, as I mentioned before, when we're talking about location. So our information will be on the screen, both now and at the end of the video again, if you want to talk about very specific neighborhoods. But I do want to go over some of our favorites, just kind of give you guys just a little bit of a taste, a little bit of a feel, and who knows, maybe one of these neighborhoods is right for you. So I'm going to start with the furthermost northern part of town. This is actually in Shalimar, which is a sub-city of Fort Walton Beach. There is a very small area called Poquito Bayou. Now, what's so funny about this is it's right outside of the Eglin Air Force Base front gate. And I worked on Eglin Air Force Base and in the area for like 5 years. I drove by this neighborhood for 5 years. I never had any idea it was here. Because of the way it is done, while you're driving down the main road on Eglin, the neighborhood's off to your right, and it's just trees, just tons of trees. Can't see anything. Trees as tall. I mean, these are hundreds of year old trees, okay? And then if you were to take this random right that just pops up on the little road and then go down there, you'll find Poquito Bayou. Now, I didn't realize this till after I'd been in this area for like 9 years. I was a real estate agent at this point, after I left the military, and I got a call for a property. We went out there and I was like, what is this? There's this whole neighborhood back here that I never had any idea. So Poquito Bayou is very cool. It's actually a very desirable neighborhood to be in. It's because it's got its own schools, it's got its own parks, it's kind of its own little ecosystem. The only stuff it doesn't have is like shopping and restaurants and grocery stores. It's got kind of all the other basics. A lot of people don't know about it, but it is more desirable because of that. Having their own schools is very important. So the prices are going to be a little bit higher for what you're getting here in Poquito Bayou than it will be in some other parts of Fort Walton Beach. Very similar to, it being a little bit more expensive because there's a gated community. This is very similar. It's tucked away. It's out of the way a little bit, but it is a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood. Tons of parks. They've got their own boat launch. In fact, we did a standalone video just on this that we'll throw up at the end or in the links down in the description box down below, whichever one we've got more room in. And we'll throw that there for you guys if you'd like to check it out.
Moving into actual Fort Walton Beach proper, we have Northgate Estates. And this is one of my favorites. It's when we talk about community, it's like Northgate Estates should just be like the definition of community. Lots of families there, very, very kind of close-knit folks, and they are really well known in the area for their Christmas lights and also Halloween. If you go onto any of the forums in Facebook, say you've got some kids and you want to take them to see Christmas lights or trick-or-treating, everyone's going to tell you, go to Northgate Estates. Whether you live there or not, that's where you go with your kids for Christmas lights and Halloween decorations. Keep in mind, if you do live there, if you purchase there, and you don't put up Halloween decoration, or you don't hand out candy for Halloween, you might get your house toilet papered.
They take it very seriously in Northgate Estates. It's been a while since I've seen one of the houses TP'd, but it has happened in past years. And what's really cool is they actually do an entire weekend of what they call an illuminary event, or luminary event, I believe it's called. And they put out like these little candles all across all of the yards. And then that is generally the weekend that you would want to go to check out all the lights. But just note, this is not going to be a short endeavor. This is an all evening thing because so many people come here. It sometimes takes 2 hours to drive through the neighborhood because you've got all the golf carts and everybody's just cruising very slow, watching all the lights. But it is a really good time. And one of my favorite things is one of the local radio stations out here actually puts on Christmas music, and they put out these big signs, hey, tune into 93.7, I think, or 93.5. I can't remember the exact one. You'll see it right when you go into the neighborhood of Northgate Estates. And if you flip to there, a lot of the houses in that neighborhood will have their lights dancing to it. So it'll literally be like, whatever, and you'll see it actually bouncing around to it. So it makes the experience a little more fun. If you've got a truck, you can throw the kids in the back on hay bales or whatever. You'll see this a lot. You'll also see some of the adults maybe with a keg in the back of their truck. So just keep in mind, it's not generally all that rowdy. It is generally very calm and everything, but you will have some people drinking and enjoying their little trip around the neighborhood. So just keep that in mind.
And these aren't small, decorations either. Some of these people spend thousands upon thousands of dollars. I mean, huge, elaborate decorations that you wouldn't expect to see for free viewing. You would expect to pay money, like an admission or something, to see these lights. And you can just drive through the neighborhood. There's no gate or anything. You're free to just wander through, and it's a really great experience. So definitely consider Northgate.
And for Halloween, too, they also do the same kind of thing. They'll have some haunted houses and stuff, but talking about these really big things, it was either last year or the year before, there were two neighbors at the end of this cul-de-sac. If you didn't drive through the cul-de-sac, you wouldn't even have seen it. But they had like these 30-foot skeletons.
Oh, yeah.
And all these other like 30 feet, it's a one-story house. This was taller than the house, right? And so maybe 30 feet's exaggerated, but they were really tall. And they were like looking at each other, like almost like looking like they were going to do battle. Like they set them up on purpose that way. And it was just really cool. They had a fog machine out there and all this like creepy music and like people running in the background, like that you would see. It was really, really cool. So Northgate Estates also super cool for Halloween, as AJ mentioned. The next neighborhood I want to go over is Shalimar Point, again in Shalimar. It's Shalimar Point, but this is a golf course community. Now, the golf course is not kept up as well as I would like to see it. Personally, the greens are not as green. They run a little rough. If you're a golfer, you know what I'm talking about. But all in all, it is a pretty fun course, and it's a challenging course. And, of course, living on a golf course is always kind of fun. But one of the cool things about Shalimar Point in general is it tends to move with the market very quickly, and it adjusts very quickly, and the equity moves very quickly as well. Now, there is a chance in the future that they sell off that golf course and then put more homes there. You do have to keep that in mind. They had talks about this many years ago, and then I think it was a gentleman named Edwin Watts, for those of you in the golfing community. I think that's a pretty popular name. I play golf. I don't really watch it or pay attention to it, so I enjoy the game. I just don't know the players. But they came in, and then they bought it, and I actually heard they only held on to it for a couple of years before they resold it. I'm hoping they keep it as a golf course and don't put a bunch of homes up. Just keep in mind that something like that could happen down the road. The next one we want to talk about is Emerald Village. For those of you guys that might be getting stationed out of Hurlburt Field or working out of Hurlburt Field if you're a contractor, this is a great neighborhood if you just do not want to commute. It is located right out of the back gate of Hurlburt Field. So as long as you're commuting during normal hours, you should be able to get right to it. That gate used to be 24 hours. They just stopped recently. So maybe by the time you're watching this, it's back to 24 hours. But if you're commuting at a normal, 9 to 5 rate or 7 to 6 p.m. or whatever it is, then Emerald Village is a great option because it's right there. You get done, you can probably go home for lunch. You don't really have to fight the traffic. So a lot of big benefits there. The community itself is very tight-knit, and it's very military-centered. There's a lot of military folks there because of the proximity to the base. So I can't say it's necessarily a safe neighborhood just because of that, but it feels definitely like a little bit safer. You've got more military folks. You got more people running in the morning, exercising outside. Just the overall feel of the neighborhood is a little bit tighter. And then, of course, the location is great, too. You are just a couple of minutes to get to 98. Highway 98 is the main road that runs through all of our towns here. And then you're also right there, kind of in the heart of Fort Walton. You do have to kind of drive a little bit just to kind of get onto Mariester Cutoff or over onto Eglin Boulevard, whatever, just to kind of get to everything. But it is a short commute either way.
Talking about your commute, I'm kind of a nut when it comes to like entering and exiting a neighborhood, I don't want to deal with stressful situations because usually I'm driving with a 4-year-old in the car. So something that I like about this neighborhood is that it's right next to an intersection with like traffic lights. So it's not quite so cumbersome trying to get out of there and either turn right or left depending on which way you want to go. Because the traffic light is right there, there's some pretty solid intervals to help you to go in either direction pretty quickly.
Oh, and really cool about their location too is that both of the main entrances and exits, there is a gas station there. So if you run out of something, you run out of milk while you're cooking your, baking a cake or something, you can run right to the gas station, get whatever you need. And of course, whenever you need to get gas, it's right there in your neighborhood. You don't have to go that far. And for those of you guys that like to drink, if you're, 10 o'clock at night, you run out of Coors Lights, you can always walk over and grab some extras from the gas station.
I was definitely thinking, like, for those of us that like to drive the car until it's E to get home, because we're like, I don't want to stop anywhere on the way home. It's like, oh, well, I'll just get gas in the morning. It's not a scary thing. Sorry for everybody that upsets if your partner rides the vehicle until E and you're like, why is there no gas in this car?
There's always two people.
The last neighborhood on our list, and not the last neighborhood in the Fort Walton Beach area, just the last one that we're going to talk about today, is Kenwood. So I really like Kenwood for the aesthetics. There's a lot of different, like, kind of rolling hills through Kenwood. There are multiple parks. There are some waterfront properties, as well as some just internal cul-de-sac properties. So it's really, really a great neighborhood for raising children in, because there are all these cul-de-sacs that they can get together and play in. The traffic is usually pretty slow through there. You've got some older, well-established properties. You've got some properties that have been renovated and are a pretty penny. I would say Kenwood is one of our more expensive neighborhoods, but it's well worth it. It's very central to everything, while still providing a sort of privacy and intimacy amongst the community, really. There are also a couple of lakes in Kenwood that are really, really great. My daughter really likes going to lakes and finding ducks and feeding them. It's like this huge thing for her. She loves it. Or turtles. So we actually almost purchased in Kenwood whenever I was looking for a house for us to buy recently. And the only reason that we didn't is because the property that we fell in love with was, well, it wasn't ready for us. It needed a bit of work, and it's just me. So I didn't really have the time or ability to work on those properties. So definitely consider that it's an older neighborhood, and if it hasn't been recently renovated, there is a good chance that you will have to come out of pocket for some renovations, and just to make sure that it hasn't deteriorated throughout the years. Now you have a better idea of what to look for in Fort Walton Beach, and a couple ideas of neighborhoods and which ones to look into further. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can reach out to us. All of our contact information is on the screen. You can comment down below. We absolutely love hearing your feedback. Otherwise, we'll just see you all at the next one.
See ya.